Hello and welcome to my channel. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. It was a cold December night, a week before Christmas. My family always does Christmas in our Hamptons, New York summer house. The Hamptons are always quiet this time of year, as a large chunk of real estate there is owned by rich people who have 2 or 3 other houses elsewhere in the country. My dad and I was at the house first before the rest of the family, as my mum and sister still had work until the next weekend. My dad was retired at the time and school was over for the winter break for me, so we wanted just to go up to the Hamptons house early. We all have our own rooms in this house, which sits on the quite dead end road. My dad turned on the heat and water and all that stuff that he always had to take care of when we returned for the first time in months. I brought my PS3 to play in my room. I spent most of the first day there playing video games. On that first night we were there was a big snowstorm, another reason we wanted to come up early to beat the crappy road conditions that would come for days after the storm. The next morning when I woke up and went down to the kitchen, my dad asked me when I built a snowman. I responded, "What do you mean?" He said, "The snowman in the backyard." I went to look out the window and there was at least 2 feet of fresh snow. There was also a snowman sitting in our backyard. It had 2 stick for arms angled up into the air, and it had eyes and a smile carved into its head. The eyes and mouth side was facing the window. I said to my dad I didn't build that. My dad laughed and said it must have been the neighbour kids. My dad thought it was an innocent joke, so did I as well. The next night is where things got bad though. I was in bed asleep and suddenly woke up to a distinct thump on my window. I was terrified. I pulled the blankets over myself to hide, to not be in the view of whoever might be out there. But after 5 minutes I started to wonder maybe it was the snow that fell off the roof and blew it into the window. I got up to peek out the window. I screamed because at first I thought what I saw was a person, but it was actually another snowman, standing right outside my window. There was an angry frown on this one instead of a smiling face. I screamed for my dad and he came rushing inside. I pointed at the window. This time he wasn't happy. He said he would go next door in the morning and talk to the kids' parents. I slept in my sister's room for the rest of that night. Early the next morning my dad went next door and rang the bell. But they weren't home. There was no cars in the driveway. That meant they weren't even in town. That was the only nearby house with kids in it, so that didn't exactly help explain the situation. For 5 or 6 days straight, nothing else happened until Christmas Eve night. The rest of our immediate family plus all 4 of our grandparents were now in the house. We were in the living room. This was before dinner, but it was already dark outside before someone knocked on the front door. Instead of using the doorbell, we weren't expecting any other family. I started to get nervous. My dad went over and asked who it is. Someone on the other side of the door started saying, "Please let me in, I need help." The front door had no peephole or windows, nor any windows that would allow us to see who was on the other side of the door. My dad asked what's wrong, and the voice on the other side of the door said, "I've no one to spend Christmas with. Please help me." We all looked at each other now, and my dad yelled to please leave before we called the police. The person on the other side of the door said, "I'd leave, please don't call the police." He never opened the door. We instantly tied this to a creepy snowman. We knew it had to be connected. And we were right. On Christmas morning there was a note taped to our front door. It said, "To the best of my memory, I just wanted to have a little fun. I built a snowman for the boy in the house. I don't have anyone to spend the holiday with. Hurt." In one way or another, I think whoever left that note on our door and built those 2 snowmen was mentally ill or unstable. It was very unlikely that it was meant to be a joke, considering he came to our front door. I think he was dangerous, and even if he wasn't inherently hostile, the fact that he did what he did is just enough for him to be considered somebody that none of us wanted to mess with. It was Christmas Eve of 2015. I had recently gotten a new job as a psychiatric nurse, but I had to start with the overnight shifts, and that included Christmas Eve night, which was a Thursday. Well, technically it was a Friday by the time I arrived to work. But anyway, most of the shifts are slow and boring, with a lot of sitting around on the computer for most of the night, since most of the patients are asleep during them hours that I was there. Occasionally I have to check on patients and observe their behaviour, and deal with patients who would become restless in the middle of the night. Dealing with so many people with mental disabilities at once was a lot to take in at first. But with all the Christmas decorations scattered throughout the building brought a little extra cheer to the place at night. The main lights in the hallway go out and a dim set of lights turn on. These dim lights mixed with the Christmas lights that had been hung all over the place created a more relaxed and comfortable setting. There was one particular patient that had been creeping me out. Her name was Abby. She was an old sickly lady with severe schizophrenia. She would often at times mumble to herself incomprehensible things, and sometimes she'd say things out loud that I assumed were directed at me, but she'd just be talking to herself. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning when I went to go check on Abby, who had been awake the whole night. I came in and asked if she needed anything, and she just looked at me with a horrific smile and laughed that gave me the chills, because I felt like I was witnessing something from a scary movie. She looked away from me and started muttering something I didn't understand, most of it, but the words that did pop out to me were "check the bathroom." I asked her to repeat herself, but she didn't acknowledge me. She just turned to her side and rested her head on the pillow. I tried to get her to confirm that she wanted me to check the bathroom, but she wouldn't answer me now. So I checked the bathroom across from her bed in her room, but as I expected, there was nothing out of the ordinary. I left her room and went back to my desk in the hall. Then I looked at the bathroom door across from my desk. My curiosity got the better of me, so I went into the bathroom, but the lights wouldn't work. I stood by the doorway, listening for a moment, and I heard breathing and then a click sound from one of the stalls. I went to get the door stopper from behind the desk and wedged it under the bathroom door, so that the light from the hall would let me see at least a bit into the bathroom. I got on my knees and checked under the stall from a distance. No feet could be seen in either of the stalls, though one of the 2 stalls had its door shut. I went up to it and stuck my eye through the crack of the door. It was really dark, but I felt like I could see someone at the back of the stall. I got back down on my knees to look under the door, but when I did, I couldn't see what I thought I saw. I got back up and took one more look through the crack of the door, and there was someone's face right on the other side peeking through the crack, just as I was looking in. I almost fell to the floor of fright, but managed to run to the door and slammed it shut. I grabbed my keys from my desk and locked the bathroom door. I told another nurse that there was someone in the bathroom, but when we checked together, not only did the lights now work, but the stalls were both open and no one was inside either of them. It was impossible for someone to have left that room because I locked the door. That night before my shift ended, I tried to question Abby about what was in the bathroom, but she wouldn't answer me. Just as I gave up and walked through the door with my jacket on, I heard her say "Merry Christmas." I turned and saw her give me a smile. Only the smile didn't give me a good feeling. There was something unsettling about it. I had to turn and leave. I had to work with Abby for a few more weeks before she was transferred to another centre for hospice care. And to this day, I still feel there was a connection between Abby and whatever I saw in the bathroom. It's literally just one of those stories I can't even try to understand or rationalise, but it still haunts me. It was Christmas Eve and I was a freshman in high school. My family had been split up for some time now, so normally we trade off Christmas Day and Christmas Eve every year, and this year was no different. I had come home early from my grandparents' Christmas party while everyone else was at my aunt's and uncle's celebrating. When I was dropped off, my cousins offered to stay with me for a few hours, yet I declined. I thought that I could watch some of my new DVDs and get some alone time in the house, which is a rarity. I had noticed an unfamiliar car parked out on the street, but didn't think anything of it, considering it was Christmas Eve. Possibly just the neighbour's relative or something. After I got inside, I locked the door and grabbed snacks and started to settle down. I hadn't been home for more than 15 minutes when there was a knock at the door. I unlocked the door and opened it only a crack to see a man standing there with dark glasses, slightly overweight, and dressed casually. He didn't look like much of a threat, but my stomach dropped. He then asked, "I was wondering about the car outside. Is it for sale?" I told him I didn't think so. "Is there someone here I could talk to about it?" he said. I told him no, you can come back another time, and then shut the door and turn to walk away as fast as possible. He then reached for the handle immediately and started pounding on the door. I heard a string of profanities and the pounding stopped. Being terrified, I began crawling on the floor to the phone, hoping he wouldn't be able to see me through one of the windows. Then I heard the noises. Our house had an open garage door and it led through to the laundry room, where the door lock was broken and no one had bothered to fix it. Just then I heard a man yell and saw the man through the window. He ran to his car and drove off. My uncle had gotten to him just in time and scared the man off. Who knows what would have happened if he hadn't made it home in time. Sadly, we didn't get the plate number and nothing ever came of it, but I'll never be home alone on the holidays ever again.